About what we do on social media these days. To what extent are they for public consumption? And under what condition is it private? And more specifically, for instance, under what premise should we allow others to watch what we do on social media in order to determine our professional qualifications? And that's what we want to talk about right in this program, Upfront.
Korean baseball players' careless use of social media is continuously making headlines. Hanwha Eagles outfielder Kim Won-suk was ousted from the team after his private message exchange with a fan containing offensive remarks about his team was made public. In 2015, KT Wiz catcher Jang Sung-woo was suspended in 50 games for insulting comments he made about his teammates, fans, and a cheerleader. Korea isn't the only country where athletes are getting themselves into trouble on social media. Following Switzerland's loss to South Korea at the 2012 London Olympics, Swiss footballer Michael Morganella expressed his frustration with a discriminatory tweet, saying he wanted to beat up all South Koreans. He was later expelled from the Olympics. Some in the sports community say former Manchester United manager Alex Ferguson's famous words, "Twitter is a waste of time," has never been more true. As athletes and celebrities continue to attract unwanted headlines for their controversial social media posts, a new discussion has emerged over whether social media is a public or private space. Social media can also have an enormous impact on the lives of everyday people. Harvard University withdrew its admission offers to 10 prospective students after discovering they traded sexually explicit and racist memes and messages in a private Facebook group chat. A college spokesperson said an offer admission may be rescinded if a student engages in behavior that brings into question his or her honesty, maturity, or moral character. On this week's Upfront, we take a look at different perspectives and concerns about privacy on social media.
Well, in studio, we have two professors today joining us. Kyung-sin, he's a professor of law from Korea University here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we have Chae Sang-mi here. She's a professor of business from Ewha Women's University joining us. Thank you very much.
Good to be here.
Interesting subject here. A lot of people are saying different things about social media these days. And Professor Park, some people say the time spent on social media is complete waste. Some of the old generation people from all generations say that, and others say this is an essential part of expressing our existence these days. What is your view about that dispute?
What is not waste of time?
They're very philosophical there.
Yeah, we watch movies, we talk to our friends, we read upon current events. That's what we do. That's what we used to do offline, but now we do that online. I don't think there is any more waste of time caused by social media.
From business perspective, social media is essential, already part of our existence as well, right?
Yeah, sure.
Tell us a little bit about what you observe in business.
For the firms level, that social media itself is very, very important media to communicate with their customer. They use that very intensely to maintain good relationship with their business partner and customer. So that's why they want to get more information about their user, to know more about their consumer, what they're doing, what they like. So it's very important.
So in that sense, already social media has that social and public content, dimension in it right there. And recently we have had a controversy over a baseball player who was kicked out of his profession because of his allegedly private exchange with his fan and through the social media here. And there have been a lot of talks about it altogether. Can we start with the legal dimension of this kind of action?
Well, this is not the first time that has happened. The systems, when they detect people with extreme and violent views, they have taken measures, especially to put them out of privileged positions. Playing in professional baseball league is not a basic necessity. It's not a human right. it is a privileged position that has to be held up to a very high standard.
I see.
When you find people secretly holding extreme and violent views in privileged position, like
Right.
reporters, professional baseball, or judgeship, the systems, I think, have to take some action to prevent those views from percolating to, actual harms to other people in the society.
So I guess there is this question about private sphere versus public sphere within social media. And how do we explain this level of sensitivity? People just acting so sensitively to others' exchange of views.
Okay, I can think, analyze those phenomena with a two perspective. One is, there really have interest for famous people, like a baseball player,
Right.
the politician, and celebrity. They always want to know what they're doing, what they're speaking. The first thing is. Second thing is the social media itself. Social media based on the users' participation. So without users' generated contents, there's no social media.
So exchange and reaction is an essential part of social media activities.
Yes. So technology enable people to copy their opinion very quickly, spread out, and they can share that information and feedback, comments, all together. So that's why it looks like instantly measure that the audience reaction very quickly. So that's why it looks like a very sensitive. But compared to past time, if the viewer watching the same contents through the TV medium, maybe for the broadcasting system or that somebody want to measure
Right.
how it is sensitive, there is no way they can actually measure that sensitivity itself. That's why.
That's a great point because I never thought about that way. But a lot of people believe a big part of the social media is still private sphere, though. We have question about privacy and so on. Where do we draw the line?
Yeah, there are private individuals who are avidly sought by ordinary people. We should not fault people, we should not penalize people for being famous. If for some reason, for some accident, by accident or by some other measure, if and when their violent, extreme inner views are revealed, the system is entitled to take action to prevent further harm or possible harm to other people and society. But I do agree that even celebrities should have privacy, should be able to carry on private conversations, no matter how outrageous it is, with other people. From those baseball players' point of view, it's very unfortunate if their plan was to just hold those beliefs and not act upon them. No harm was forthcoming. They could have carried on with their profession.
Professor Che, technically speaking,
Yes.
there are sections within social media usually perceived as a private sphere, right? Like
Yes.
Facebook sometimes, the communications. How do we actually, technically speaking, generally, how do we draw the line between public side of social media and then private side of it?
Actually, the users can control their private space by, change the privacy setting in there. So just, whenever they post a new contents on that, they can release the contents only the people they know, like friends, or they can just open the contents to the public. So they can choose those two things. But the reality is totally different,
In what way?
because the technology, there are a lot of technology. Have you heard about cookie, beacons, web beacons? Those technology, can monitor any kind of post, picture, and contents and emotion things can be monitored all the time, 24/7. So the why? Because firms, they want to get more information about their user. And then service provider like Facebook and other company, they actually provide a service for free for user. But as you know, there is ethical principle like there is no free lunch, right? So
Right.
you should think like it's a free, but actually they paying through their all kind of information they are posting intentionally, unintentionally. So even though you think the space is very private because you
Right.
did a private setting and control.
Right.
But just imagine that you are in the room, and room looks like very
Yes.
private,
Right,
and
right.
you close the door, and you can do whatever you like.
Right.
But suddenly you realize that somebody watch you over time, like 24/7.
Right.
If you know that, you never think that that space is very
Exactly,
private for you.
exactly,
So
exactly.
you have to aware that technology level let you alone there, even though you think that space is very private.
That
So-
sounds very serious. Professor Park, what Professor Che said seems to be quite serious here.
Computer, a server somewhere records what you are doing.
Right.
Doesn't mean that it's not private. For instance, even before the advent of the internet, we use our feature phones. Somewhere in the system, telephone company records when, with whom, for how long I talked with other people. That the record is being made itself doesn't mean that what I'm doing is not private. So if the users
Right.
use the privacy settings to allow or prevent others from viewing
Right.
their postings, contents, that should determine what other human beings are actually reading your material. And I think that decision, the privacy setting that
Right.
the users use,
Right.
I think it should be respected. If I talk to you in private,
Right.
relying on your commitment to confidentiality of our conversation,
Right,
and
right.
you break it, I think I am entitled to hold you responsible for doing so.
These days, what we hear is future employees, for instance, can monitor what you do, perhaps in a public sphere of social media, and they can come up with a judgment or a determination. So we asked people on the street about this question, what we think about this job interview settings when the future employer actually looks into your social media contents and make their own determination. Let's take a look how people responded to these questions right here.
According to a survey conducted by a job portal site, 1 in 5 employers use social networking sites to research job candidates. More than half of them said something they perceive as negative on a candidate's social media account could affect their hiring decision. Is the use of social media for recruitment purposes a powerful tool to learn more about candidates, or an invasion of privacy and freedom of speech? We went out on the streets to gauge public opinion on the controversial subject.
SNS는 개인이 사용하는 공간이고 개인의 생각을 표현하는 공간인데 그거를 공과 사를 구분해서 기업이 잘 그것을 활용해야 된다고 생각해서 저는 사생활 침해라고 생각합니다.
회사의 어떤 그 채용에 반영한다는 것은 명백한 사생활 침해라고 생각을 합니다.
누구나 보는 SNS를 인사 담당자가 보는 건 사생활 침해가 아니라고 생각합니다.
이력서에 SNS 계정을 쓰기 시작하면서 입사용 계정과 평소에 쓰는 계정을 따로 만들기 시작하더라고요. 그래서 저는 사생활 침해라고 생각합니다.
이제 면접이란 거는 즉흥적이고 이제 한 몇 분 안에 갈리는 것이기 때문에 그 사람이 진짜 어떤 사람인지 잘 이제 반영을 못할 거라고 저는 생각하거든요. 그래서 SNS라는 건 이제 몇 년 동안 이제 기록되는 것이기 때문에 그 사람에 대해서 정말 파악할 수 있는 이제 지표가 될 수 있을 거라고 생각하고
저는 사생활 침해라고 생각합니다. 왜냐하면 그 자기 자신의 일기장 같은 곳인데 그런 자신의 가장 솔직한 면을 적는 것이 SNS인데 그런 걸로 인성 검증할 수는 없다고 생각하거든요.
얘기 나누려고 그리고 내가 어떻게 살아갔는지 아니면 내가 어떤 경험을 했는지에 대해서 그냥 단순하게 보여주는 거기 때문에 그런 걸 통해서 그렇게 사생활 침해는 아니라고 생각하고 그 사람의 인성에 대해서 간단하게 한번 찾아보는 거기 때문에 저는 그 정도는 사생활 침해는 아니라고 생각합니다.
Professor Che, how extensive is this phenomena? I'm sure you deal with lots of students who are looking for jobs and stuff. These days, how prevalent is this in terms of like future employers reviewing prospect employees' social media activities?
I don't think it's a serious. It's a kind of phenomenon. So because many young people, they try to express themselves in a cyberspace.
Right.
One way is using social media.
Right.
They post a lot of pictures based on their own, the personal experience. for employer perspective, it's very important for them to figure out not only their best side, but also the other sides. You know, if there is a dark side, what can we do? So that's why they want to search all things what they did through information they can gather from online. So we cannot say it's a kind of the censor or something. Do I need to maintain two accounts separately for my job or the other for my private life? But as I told you, it's not like a space for my personal diary. It's a kind of space can be released to anybody else. So that's why the people gotta use their social media responsibly.
From business perspective, it seems to make sense for doing all you can to make sure these future talents are the proper ones. But how potentially problematic is this in terms of looking up someone's social media records?
Let's say I'm applying for a job as a reporter in online media company, and the company wants to know how active you have been on social media. If all the postings, all my contents posted on public settings can be viewed by anybody, why couldn't the company, why couldn't my future employer also have access to my public postings? And another discussion that we are missing out on is there is a growing number of people who believe that amassing information, even from public space, should be limited if it's done by future employers or other people who have potentially a lot of power on your lives. For instance, some people didn't like it when police officer became a Facebook friend to somebody, to a target of the investigation.
Procedural
there
justice.
I mean, academically, there is a view that privacy is incremental. That you disclose to one person doesn't mean that it's disclosed to everybody. Or that you leave something at a place potentially accessible by all people doesn't mean that it is public. So in that perspective, what is potentially viewable by everybody doesn't mean that it can be reached by anybody.
Very important point right there. And Professor Park said, privacy could be incremental. And also, I guess he implies also, identity could change over time. How should we understand this problem? I mean, if a future employer dig up an information or social activity records 30 years ago and make a judgment about this professional, what kind of person he is, she is, I don't think it's necessarily optimal for the business itself, isn't it?
In my opinion, it's totally up to for employer perspective. Employer, they can just check some reputation by asking just only one person. If
we do actually have had
we
that.
do that.
Even before the time of social media.
Asking one person and check the reputation is that, she is not very good person. Then listen to that, and then flex on everything, and the decision is more unfair. That all kind of posting, the writing down is totally from the applicants themselves. Even though it's a as time goes by, they're caught with some exaggerations, or sometimes their identity can be changed, but it's coming from themselves, So checking reputation the other is more the worst. So why don't the user, when they post anything on the social media, they need to ask themselves, am I okay? This contents be there for last, forever. Am I okay? There's contents being used to profile who I am, all those kind of things they ask themselves first, and then click post button.
When a user chooses to delete his or her own record of the past, you mentioned these technologies that can look into the private side of the information.
Yeah, they can do that.
Can they still kind of look up the information that a user has technically deleted?
Yeah, of course, because they save all the contents in the database. So even though you delete it somewhere, they can make a copy of them in somewhere else for the future usage. That's why that recently that European country, they create a new law. We call
the
it
right to be forgotten.
Right to be forgotten.
Is there a difference between the way we define that in real life situation versus the online life situation?
What we are trying to protect by privacy is really freedom.
Okay.
If you look at the literature, the early literature on privacy, it's all about how people being aware of surveillance, being aware of other people's watchful eyes,
Right.
not free of being themselves, their lives are distorted by their concern to tailor-make their lives to other people's standards. I started the previous response by saying that it really depends on what's at stake. The Trump is thinking about asking every non-U.S. person coming into the country to requiring the person to produce their social media ID, to check on their political beliefs, possible, terrorist propensities, things like that. People fearful. People hate that, right? People's response to that will be different from people's response to employer looking up on your social media, because we believe that freedom of travel, going to the U.S. Should not be some privilege that's given out selectively by the U.S. Government when Americans can come here freely. If the job I'm getting is a common job, there really shouldn't be too much, nosy
intrusion
investigation
into,
on my private beliefs. Another issue is the more information they get on the employees, they run greater risk of being charged with discrimination.
Right. There is that risk.
Yes.
For sure,
Korea doesn't have a comprehensive anti-discrimination law yet, but it will have one soon. And the National Human Rights Commission Act, another law, already makes discrimination, unreasonable discrimination, sort of unlawful. Under that legal environment, if the employer asks, "Oh, what's your sexual orientation?" To find out about that, can I have access to your, public postings on Facebook? Well, the minute the employer asks and makes, negative decision, decides not to hire that person,
their own liability.
Yes. It will. It will raise a doubt of discrimination. That's why a lot of employers overseas, not ask those questions and try to minimize the information that they get. In Korea, applicants are routinely required to submit their facial photos. Employers overseas don't require that.
Exactly. Professor Che, looking down the road, far into the future, do you see a possibility of this technology being a little bit adjusted and further developed to clearly protect the real privacy better?
Technology always evolving with interaction with our society and the user. So we already watch a lot of, the risk can invade our privacy online. So that's why in our domain, we define that online privacy is ability I can control my personal data in the space, So that's why there are lots of technology like encryption. So if you use a software, then you can encrypt all of your conversation happen online. Or you can hide your IP address. There's another things, so you can behind some words, so nobody knows who you are. So those technology are, emerging these days to
therefore,
protect.
there is that serious demand, and business side will respond to that demand, introducing more and more of such technology to protect
of
privacy.
course. There are a lot of people need privacy. That's why they develop new technology. Here's technology you can protect using this.
But in response to that, however, the national security concerns and terrorism, counterterrorism concerns also crash as well. So it's ongoing problem.
They
altogether.
should find the optimal point.
Right. Well, we have had an interesting conversation here. We have already run out of time, but I have learned a lot of technical, ethical, legal things here through the conversations. For that reason, I have to thank both of our, guests here, Professor Kyung-sin, also Professor Che Sang-mi, for sharing wonderful views today. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we want to thank our viewers for having joined us for our interesting and informative conversation. And likewise, when we have these kind of topics that matter for Korea as well as the world, we want to ask you to join once again next time. And until then, this has been Kim Byung-ju. Thank you very much.